6 Sinister Wendy's encounters revealed. Terrifying tales you'll never forget. Laura gripped the steering wheel, her tired eyes scanning the shadowy parking lot of the Wendy's that had once been a beacon of comfort in her chaotic life. Tonight, however, the diner buzzed with an unsettling energy. The neon glow beckoned her like a siren, promising fries and their signature Frosties, but she felt a creeping dread slide down her spine. She'd worked too many late-night shifts, and maybe that was it, fatigue making her paranoid. But deep in her gut, something didn't feel right. As Laura stepped inside, the laughter of diners mingled with the sizzling fryer and the buzzing kitchen lights. Families crowded around tables, but Laura's gaze honed in on the employees. One cashier's grin stretched unnaturally wide, eyes locked onto her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. A chill crept into her bones as she spotted another worker, whispering furtively to a silhouette lurking behind the dumpster outside, a shadow too dark, too still for that hour of the night. She shook her head, letting out a weary breath. Just exhaustion, nothing more. But then, a jolt of fear shot through her when her phone vibrated in her pocket. Glancing down, she read the message, "I see you." Her heart raced, and she locked the screen, breath quickening. Could it be a prank? The employees traded glances that seemed to echo the coldness in her chest, their expressions shifting subtly, like predators circling prey. Eager to distract her children from the anxiety tightening around her, she called to Sarah and Tommy, their little voices rising with excitement. And then it escalated. She turned, only to find one of the odd employees leaning close to Tommy, urging him to come see the coolest toy in the back. Panic surged in her veins. "No, sweetie, don't," but before she could finish, he was already moving toward the employee, the restaurant around them blurring into a cacophony. In the ensuing chaos, it felt like time warped. Desperation clawed at her throat when she turned back to see that Tommy had vanished. The laughter of the diners faded, replaced by ominous whispers and cold stares. Trembling, she raced through the dining area, hysteria bubbling in her chest as she called his name, her voice tightening with each second that passed. The laughter now felt mocking, eyes glancing away as if they were all in on a cruel joke. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." She felt the walls closing in. The warmth and light of Wendy's, once a comforting glow, now felt suffocating. A bitter truth gnawed at her. There was something dark behind these enticing smiles. Every corner she checked revealed nothing but shadows. As she sent frantic texts to the police, time warped again and again. Each moment felt like an eternity. They asked for specifics, and all she could relay were the strange glances, the whispers, the creeping dread in the air. Just as a familiar face crossed her path, a neighbor who always seemed so friendly, a message pinged on her phone, "I'll take good care of him." Fear clawed at her heart as cold realization dawned. What unseen horror had she walked into, and would she ever find Tommy? Laura's heart raced as her eyes darted from one shadowy corner to another. Choking on the rancid air, she realized that the laughter surrounding her felt wrong, twisted, like the desperate sounds of caged creatures. She wanted to scream but could only choke on silence. Tommy was out there somewhere, lost in this nightmare of bright lights and grinning faces that suddenly appeared all too deceptive. The employees around her no longer carried the bland smiles of fast food servitude. The woman behind the counter twisted a fry between her fingers, her gaze locked on Laura, and with every passing moment, that grin stretched wider, as though her mouth might split open entirely. It was as if she was waiting for something, anticipation lighting her eyes in a way that sent shivers cascading down Laura's spine. Tremors passed through her as she remembered Tommy's enthusiastic cheers, his tiny hands clutching his action figures. "Mommy! Look over here!" How could he wander off so easily? The moment of distraction had consumed her son. A predatory instinct shared by the employees flared beneath their jovial facades like wolves eagerly awaiting their meal. She spun back toward the entrance, desperation leaking through her frantic breaths. "Tommy!" she called again, the name echoing disturbingly in this twisted diner. No answer came. Just more laughter, haunting, mocking, as if the diners were co-conspirators in a game she wasn't aware of. She paced the floor, eyes wide, scanning the backs of chairs and gaps between tables. Not long before she was inches from that horrific smile again, a man with a name tag that read Brad was now loitering nearby, casually polishing the same plate. His eyes bore a knowing glint as their stares collided. "Can I help you find him?" he said, tilting his head slightly, the tension in his voice almost playful. "No! Where's my son?" she shot back, the rising panic in her throat causing her voice to crack. She could barely breathe. "Just calm down. You have to trust us, Laura. We'll keep him safe, we promise." The words dripped off his tongue like honey, sweetening the air but thickening the fear coiling in her gut. The kitchen door swung open, and the pulsating fluorescent lights spilled out a figure, a child, not her child, but small and familiar. Her heart leaped, but it fell just as quickly when she recognized the child's face, a stranger's face, framed by matted hair and sunken cheeks, eyes vacantly staring ahead, almost lifeless. A whisper of dread washed over her. What was this place truly hiding? Laura's instincts screamed at her to flee, to run until the suffocating atmosphere lifted, but her feet rooted firmly to the floor. The shadow behind the dumpster suddenly grew larger, beckoning her attention once more. An impulse surged through her veins, and before she could rationalize it, she started toward it, heart hammering in her chest. As she stepped outside into the chilling night, the air thick with uncertainty, and the shadows twisted eerily against the half-lit alleyway. Every instinct told her to turn back, but the thought of Tommy kept her moving. "Tommy!" she cried again, stepping deeper into the darkness. Her breath formed clouds, and she could almost hear the echo of footsteps, racing away from her. Suddenly, the voice of her earlier neighbor sliced through the stillness. "He*s closer than you think, Laura." Her heart lurched at the sinister implication. What was hidden in the shadows, and was it Tommy or something more horrifying altogether? Exhaustion clawed at her, but the overwhelming urge to uncover the truth pushed her forward into the unknown, and just then, something cold brushed against her ankle. Laura froze, panic gripping her once more. Was it a trick of the light, or had the shadows truly come alive? A jolt of cold slithered up Laura's leg, freezing her in place. The shadows around her seemed to shudder, alive with movement. She brushed her foot against the ground, terrified of what she might find. Heart pounding, she felt a warm breath on her ankle. Her body twisted to look, but the alleyway remained empty. "Tommy?" she whispered, the name hanging in the thick air. Silence rushed back at her, a heavy, suffocating blanket that wrapped around her shoulders. Just then, a flicker of movement caught her eye. From the darkness, a figure emerged, small and hunched, stumbling toward her. "Mommy!" The voice was unmistakable. Relief surged through her, pushing her feet forward, but the figure shuffled closer and something was wrong. The face she knew so well was obscured by shadows, and fear clawed at her throat once more. "Tommy!" she gasped. "Is that you?" As the figure stepped into a ray of sickly light spilling from a broken street lamp, her heart crumbled. It wasn't he, her son. The child before her wore a faded baseball cap too large for his head, and his eyes leaked shadows that darkened his hollow cheeks. They were dull, lifeless like the child she'd seen inside the diner. "Come play with us," he rasped, but the words twisted in the air, sounding more like a threat than an invitation. Every instinct screamed at Laura to flee, but the energy in those empty eyes held her captive. "Where's Tommy?" she demanded, her voice a mixture of fear and anger, wrenching her from the spell. The boy's lips curled into a grin, showcasing a set of crooked teeth. "Tommy's with us," he murmured, tilting his head unnaturally, as though posing for an unseen camera. It felt mocking her desperation. Her pulse strummed furiously in her ears. "Where?" Panic surged, fueling her movement as she stepped back, heart racing. The boy pointed, not with a finger, but with a bone-thin arm, pointing deeper into the shadows. He's just around the corner waiting for you." Before she could scream, more whispers rose from behind the child. Shadows shifted, coming alive with familiar silhouettes. Each child's face was eerily similar, all twisted in joyless grins, eyes longing for something beyond her grasp. "Come play," they chanted, their voices a sickly sweet chorus that echoed against the alley walls. Laura stumbled back, fighting the urge to scream, as the walls of the alley seemed to close in, shadows stretching like fingers ready to grasp her. "No! I won't!" she shouted, feeling the pressure rising around her, sucking the breath from her lungs. She turned to run, but the laughter erupted around her, a cacophony of taunting calls, refusing to let her escape. Something tripped her, and she fell, hands scraping against the rough pavement. As she looked back, the children had vanished, but the shadow behind her loomed larger, looming over her like a black cloud. Chill crept up her spine as she scrambled to her feet, and then she heard it. A giggle. Not a childless giggle. It was louder, more sinister, deeper, echoing from the diner, creeping through the cracks of the night. Something was watching her, lurking within the folds of darkness, waiting for the perfect moment to claim her. "Tommy," she breathed, tears stinging her eyes. Had she come far enough down this rabbit hole? Deep inside, the dread coiled tighter. What price would she pay to uncover the truth? Laura moved toward the diner, every heartbeat trembling in the silence as it called her back into its depths. But with each step, she sensed an unmistakable presence following, inching closer as if it relished her struggle. She glanced back, but what she saw made her blood run cold. The shadows had taken form, and they weren't just looking for Tommy. They were coming for her. As she stepped over the threshold, the door swung shut behind her with a finality that echoed in her ears, leaving her with the question coiling like smoke within her mind. Would she find Tommy, or would he become another shadow in this cursed place? The air inside the diner was stale, the smell of grease mingled with something far more pungent, a rot that made Laura's stomach churn. The flickering fluorescent lights overhead hummed ominously, sending nervous pulses of light dancing across the battered table booths. She pressed her back against the door, feeling its rough texture, grounding herself. "Tommy!" she called, her voice trembling but assertive. Nothing. Just more shadows. Her eyes darted around the dimly lit room, searching for hints of her son amid the scattered remnants of late-night diners who'd long since left. The clatter of abandoned plates was oddly comforting, but it quickly turned to dread as she spotted a booth in the corner, draped in deep shadow. If it wasn't he for the small, almost imperceptible movement within, she might have overlooked it entirely. She took a tentative step forward, her heart thudding loud enough to drown out the hum of the lights. "Tommy!" she shouted again, desperation creeping under her skin. Suddenly, the movement stopped, and from the darkness emerged a figure. Short and hunched, like the child she'd seen in the alley. But this one was different. It moved with purpose, gliding rather than walking. The air turned thick, and a chill twisted in her gut. "Come closer," it beckoned, each word drawing Laura nearer. Her instinct screamed at her to run, to turn and dash back into the alley, back into the night. But she stepped closer, a moth drawn to the flickering flame. With each step, the figure's features became clearer, and the pit in her stomach deepened. The face was devoid of life, just like the other's sunken cheeks, eyes that were dark pools, and that grin, wide and empty. "No," she whispered in realization. "No, no, no!" Laura's heart raced as the figure stretched a bony arm toward her, its fingers impossibly long, reaching. "Tommy wants to play," it sang, the voice garbled as though it had been steeped in despair. She turned abruptly, panic clawing at her throat. Where was Tommy? "I have to find Tommy." She dashed past the figure, feeling the chilling whispers wash over her, the shadows lancing at her heels. Each booth seemed to spring to life. The shadows of other children flickered along the walls, eyes glinting with malicious intent, pulling her deeper into their terrifying game. "Playtime is fun," they chanted, a haunting echo that burrowed into her mind. Laura's breath came in ragged gasps. She had to navigate through this maze of shadowed despair. She rushed toward the kitchen door at the back, hoping for an escape or perhaps a clue. As she barreled through, the fluorescent lights flickered violently, casting more sinister shapes onto the wall as if mocking her attempts to escape. The kitchen was a hellscape of abandoned trays and splattered grease. Suddenly, the air thickened, and something moved behind her. Whirling around, Laura found a figure standing at the entrance, shrouded in darkness. It was smaller, but the presence was tenfold. "Mommy," the voice was pure ice, echoing like it came from the depths of the abyss. Her heart dropped. It was Tommy. "Is that really you?" she cried, disbelief and hope in her voice. "Come play," he repeated, his tone unnaturally cheerful, yet tinged with an undercurrent of threat. The shadows twisted behind him, pulling at his form, as if he were already slipping away. "No!" she shouted. "I want to let you take him!" But the shadows around them flared, surging toward her, and just as they reached her, the diner door flung open with a violent crash. A gust of icy wind swept in, extinguishing the faint lights, plunging everything into an overwhelming dark. When the lights flickered back, Tommy was gone. The kitchen now stood empty, save for a chilling presence closing in from all sides. "Mommy," the whispers floated through the suffocating dark, rising to a fever pitch, relentless and deafening. She had to make a choice. Fight this black void or find Tommy, no matter the cost. But the way forward was murky, haunted by hints of past horrors buried deep beneath the surface. As the shadows closed in, choking her, Laura felt an undeniable pull toward the unknown. Would she face whatever horror awaited her, or surrender to the void? The darkness smiled, and within it, a horrifying truth began to unravel. What truly lay beneath those familiar faces? And would she be brave enough to confront it? A heavy silence engulfed the diner. Each heartbeat thudded against the walls, resonating with the looming dread. Laura took a shaky breath, anger bubbling under the surface as she clutched her fists. "Tommy!" she cried again, her voice trembling but filled with fury. The whispers intensified, each repetition of her son's name morphing into a mocking imitation. "Tommy, Tommy, Mommy!" The shadows twisted and swayed, an ominous dance surrounding her. Panic surged within, stifling her resolve. She turned blindly, eyes wide in the flickering gloom, desperate to find anything that resembled hope. The kitchen felt more like a coffin now, closing in around her, the space teeming with uncertainty. Glimpses of boy-like shapes flickered in her peripheral vision, just beyond the blinking lights, growing closer in spite of her fear. "Where are you, Tommy?" The question rolled off her tongue, laced with a mix of desperation and fury. She couldn't allow these things to take her child. Then she spotted it, a flash of red fabric in the corner, unmistakably familiar, a piece of Tommy's jacket. She lunged toward it, heart racing, the shadows reeling back as if they were repelled by her determination. Yet, as she grabbed the jacket, a cold laugh rippled through the air. "It's not his anymore," the voice crackled like static, layered with that strange, hollow cheer. Laura froze, breath catching as she recognized the chill that swept through her. The lonely laugh echoed, wrapping around her mind like a constrictor. "Yes, ours now, playtime has just begun. Get away!" She shouted at the walls, feeling the weight of the shadows pressing down, caressing her skin with icy fingertips. "Act now, or surrender to the dark," the voice urged, tantalizing yet mocking. Chaos swirled inside her as she leaned into anger, a small spark igniting her previously dulled senses. "I will not lose him!" With renewed ferocity, she raced through the kitchen door toward the shadows that flitted across her path. Emerging into the dining area, the flickering lights finally gave way to a steady hum, revealing more of the diner. The booths were now filled with ghostly children, tiny faces gleaming vacantly as they looked at her with eager anticipation. "Play with us!" they chorused in unison, voices dripping with darkness. "Where is Tommy?" Laura retorted, vehemently scanning the room, feeling the pulse of the shadows prick her skin like icy nails. "Join the party, Mommy!" they sang, stretching their thin arms, beckoning her closer, but she hesitated, guilt flooding in. Her love for her son battled against the absurdity of this nightmarish scene. Ignoring their pleas, Laura fought the urge to scream, jumping over tables as rotting food scattered beneath her. Desperation drove her forward when she heard it again, faint and fragile among the cries. Mommy, the voice, though distant, tugged at every nerve in her body. She headed towards the bathroom corridor, following the haunting call that seemed to emanate from the very walls. With every step she took, the temperature plummeted, and her breath came out in icy puffs, the shadows swirling around her feet as if beckoning her deeper into despair. The bathroom door swung open before she could touch it, the lights within casting long, erratic shadows on the grimy tiles. Inside, the mirror appeared rippled like disturbed water. Mommy had drifted softly, but this time, it swirled with undeniable urgency. Yet, before she could step inside, a wave of darkness pushed her back. All at once, faces emerged from the abyss surrounding the room, their features twisted in a grotesque manner, eyes void of light. "You can't rescue him, he ours." Laura stumbled back, dread wrapping around her heart like a vice. But her instinct kicked in. Fight or flight, the choices had grown perilously thin. Would she delve deeper into the heart of the unknown, ready to face whatever abomination stirred in the black, or flee to the uncertain safety of the outside world? The shadows crawled, whispering, "Choose," and as she contemplated, a scream echoed through the diner, a familiar, heart-wrenching cry. "Mommy, help me!" Laura stood frozen in fear, time suspended as she weighed her options, her breath quickening. She had to decide now or never. Would she brave the abyss and find Tommy, or lose him to the shadows forever? Laura's heart raced, her instincts screaming for action as the haunting wail of her child echoed in her ears. She couldn't let fear paralyze her, she had to move. "Tommy!" she shouted again, her voice cracking with desperation. The shadows recoiled momentarily, revealing her path. But she knew it wouldn't last. Time was short. She darted into the bathroom, the chill of the room slicing through her resolve. The ghostly children's shadows chased her, their laughter mingling with the haunting of her son's name. "Mommy, mommy!" It felt like a taunt, like the phrase was stitched into the very fabric of the air. Steeling her heart, she faced the mirror, its surface undulating like something alive. A silhouette formed behind the glass, a blurred shape resembling Tommy. Panic flared. She stumbled backward, nearly losing her balance. "No! Where are you?" She pressed her palms against the edge of the sink, teeth gritted. "I'm coming for you, Tommy." "Mommy!" The voice echoed louder, clearer now, emerging from behind her. Whirling around, she found nothing but darkness and silence. A tremor ran through her. With renewed purpose, she stepped closer to the mirror, the edges shimmering strangely. Maybe it held the answer. Craning her neck, Laura peered into the glass, the shadows of the children pressing against her back, their fingers grasping for her as they chanted, "Join us, Mommy!" Their voices melted together, rising above the haunting call of her son. "Get away from me!" she screamed, but it felt futile. The shadows closed in, slithering around her ankles, whispering sweet seductions of despair, and then, a flicker, a flash of red fabric again. Could it be? A glimmer of hope in the abyss. She reached for the mirror, her fingers brushing against the cold surface, and suddenly, she was drawn in. A rush of emotions overwhelmed her as the world spun. Light enveloped her, reshaping into a twisted version of the diner. The air thickened, thick with shadows, now darker than before. The ghostly children flitted around her, their eyes wide and fueled by an insatiable hunger. "Play with us," they urged, their smiles wide, but devoid of warmth. "We'll show you." And there, in the corner, she caught sight of him. Tommy, or what was left of him. His figure seemed encased in a glowing haze, eyes wide and pleading, mouth moving but muffled by the din. "Let go of him!" Laura shouted, lunging toward the light. But the shadow seized her wrists, icy fingers clawing into her skin, rooting her to the spot. "He's ours now. Join the fun, or it's playtime forever," Laura thrashed, anger fueling her. "No! I won't let you take him!" she screamed, sheer desperation igniting her voice, cutting through the grim melody of the shadows. But their laughter twisted through her mind, chilling her to the bone. As she strained against their hold, the mirror behind her fragmented, showing images of past mothers' faces twisted in agony, embraces forever lost. With one last surge, she clawed at the void, and the shadows flickered for the barest moment. "Mommy!" The cry was louder now, breaking through the chaos. In that instant, she felt a bond and undeniable connection. The voices around her shrieked, but she pushed through, focusing on Tommy. "Hold on, baby!" she cried, words fueled by a fierce love. With a shattering crash, she broke through the shadows, the cold fingers releasing her. The world spun back into focus. She was in the diner again, the room eerily silent. The ghostly children frozen, their delight replaced by horror. Where is he? Where's Tommy? But her heart sank as dread clawed at her. The diner felt emptier now. Had she really made it back? Or had she abandoned him to a fate worse than death? Just then, a deep voice echoed from the bathroom corridor, low and menacing. "You can't save him, join us instead." Laura's blood turned to ice. Which would haunt her more, the shadows or the truths she might uncover? The steak plate trembled in front of her, a warning from the very diners surrounding her. And above it, another wail filled the air. Mommy, the night had only just begun, and Laura had already lost so much. What would she risk next to go deeper into darkness? Laura swiveled, her heart pounding, scanning the dimly lit diner. Shadows seemed to elongate, twisting into monstrous forms that loomed around her. The wailing continued, a desperate howl that clawed at her insides. "Tommy!" she shouted again, voice trembling, but the air thickened with dread, suffocating her hope. The other diners sat in silent stupor, their faces pale and sunken. Their eyes all fixated on her, unblinking, mouths slightly ajar as if echoing the very sound of her fear. "Come play with us," one of the children whispered, stepping forward with a sickening grin. His eyes glimmered like two dark, bottomless pits. "Get away from me!" she screamed, backing toward the counter. She felt the chill of the metal against her back. Every instinct told her to run, but where? The door seemed miles away, somehow obstructed by the weight of unseen forces. "Mommy!" The voice tugged at her heartstrings, flickering in and out like a faulty light bulb. It was Tommy, trapped, perhaps. She needed to fight through the tendrils of darkness that gripped the diner. The realization crushed her. Was she really battling for her son, or was this just another cruel trick of the shadows? "Join us instead," came that horrible voice again, echoing through the bleak atmosphere, a honeyed invitation to surrender. Desperation surged within her. She would not give in. Not yet. Suddenly, the air shifted. The shadows writhed as if sensing her resolve, feeding off her fear. The laugh of the ghostly children warped into a cacophony, growing louder with each heartbeat. "You can't save him. You belong to us." Laura squeezed her eyes shut, an instinctive reaction against the suffocating darkness. "I will save you, Tommy," she cried, forcing her eyes open. As she struggled against the shadows, she caught a glimpse of something, a glimmer of red, like hope entwined within the dread. She rushed toward the bathroom corridor where the voice had come from, each step feeling heavier than the last, as if the very diner was prodding her to turn back. But there was no turning back now. "Tommy!" she called out, her voice echoing through the corridor, unwavering. The children's laughter faded to whispers. The shadows, thick and viscous, seemed to swirl around her legs, eager to pull her down. The bathroom door loomed ahead, ajar. Laura threw caution to the wind and bolted through, heart racing. Inside, she stumbled to find the light switch, her hands trembling as she flipped it. The fluorescent lights flickered, buzzing like angry bees, illuminating the space. There, reflected in the grimy glass of the mirror, she saw Tommy, or perhaps a reflection of her own dread. His eyes were wide and filled with a terror that made her blood run cold. He was there, but he also felt so far away. "Mommy! Help me!" he murmured, his voice barely escaping from the beyond. "Tommy!" she gasped, reaching for the mirror, the surface warping like a stormy sea. "I'm coming!" But as her fingers grazed the glass, the reflection morphed. The specters of the past mothers from the diner appeared behind her, ghostly hands reaching toward her, pulling her to join their despair. "No!" Laura screamed, fighting against the weight of the shadows. If they wanted to claim her too, she would make one last stand. Drawing on every ounce of love, she shouted, "I will not give in!" The shadows flickered, a moment of confusion coursing through their coiling forms. But she knew it wouldn't last. Was it possible to shatter the darkness and pull Tommy back into the light? "Mommy, please!" His voice cracked, desperation lacing his tone, causing the darkness to tighten around her like a noose. And just then, in that moment of horrifying clarity, she felt the connection deepen. The shadows around her trembled, losing their strength, and she pressed her palms against the mirror, closing her eyes as memories of Tommy flooded her consciousness. "I'm here, Tommy. I can save you!" Was she truly brave enough to risk everything? With one final push, she screamed his name, the sound raging through the air like a force of nature. Thunder rumbled above, but would it be enough to bring her son back or to lose herself completely in the process? Outside the bathroom, the world held its breath, waiting for her choice. As she pressed her palms against the mirror, steam seemed to rise from the surface. It pulsed, a swirling mist reflecting her terror, then a sudden stillness fell over the bathroom. In that suffocating silence, something deep within her stirred an ancient instinct, battle-ready but laced with doubt. Was there a way through? "Mommy!" The plea was now more urgent, reverberating like a desperate echo through the restroom's metallic chill. She could almost see him, a shadow of her son, shimmering beyond glassy depths. With every heartbeat, the bathroom twisted around her, swallowing her whole. She dug her nails into the cold surface, feeling its unyielding reality. "Tommy!" she cried, tears streaming down her face. The specters clamored now behind her, wailing their sadness, suffused with jealousy. "You will leave him behind," they murmured, a macabre melody that chilled her very bones. "No! I won't!" she shouted, rage surging through her. She felt heat radiate from her fingertips, coursing through her veins. The shadows detested her defiance, writhing as if she struck them directly. Their cold grips slackened for a fleeting moment, allowing her a glimpse of the chaos beyond. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and the walls of the diner shuddered all the while. A guttural growl echoed from the hallway, reverberating with a hunger that sent chills racing down her spine. Just then, the bathroom door swung closed with a resounding thud. An invisible force sealed it shut, trapping her inside. The glass warped under her hands again, but this time a flicker of red sparked further back in the depths. A hand, small and fragile, stretched out through the tepid air. "Mommy! Please, help me!" Laura's heart shattered as the connection surged stronger, illuminating the dark abyss where her son resided. Tears streamed down her face as she pressed harder. Her will defied gravity itself. Could she really reach him? But the shadows rallied. They slashed at her resolve like claws raking across her skin. "You cannot, he is ours!" Their voices crescendoed, an ominous chorus of despair that filled the air with static tension. "Get off me!" she roared, ripping her hand back from the glass. As she stumbled backward, she hit the counter, knives and forks clattering to the floor with a metallic clang. The world teetered on the brink of chaos. But Tommy's cry remained like an anvil tethered to her heart. "Find me, Mommy!" She wiped her eyes, focusing on his voice, each syllable breaking through the suffocating darkness. The spectral hands suddenly retreated, exhibiting confusion as she leaned back toward the mirror, determination burning in her chest. "I'm coming for you, Tommy," she declared, ready for whatever price she might pay, her breath steadied as she summoned every ounce of courage. "I am your mother!" The shadows began to tremble, their laughter turning into hissed gasps. "And you cannot take me!" With fierce clarity, she focused on that flickering spark behind the glass. A wild push surged through her, intertwined with her love, a tether shooting through the darkness toward her son. But then it cracked, a loud, jarring noise echoed, and the mirror splintered under the strain. The surface trembled, unfamiliar shapes lurking behind the shattered fragments. "What have you done?" The whispers screamed, a whirlwind of rage consuming the air. Laura's eyes widened as she felt the ground beneath her shift, swaying like it was alive. Desperation kicked in like icy water. She had to make a choice. With one last push, she stretched her hand toward the fragmenting glass, a final act of desperate hope and fear. The world shattered around her. The echoes of the diner twisted into a cacophony, and in the whirlwind of chaos, she felt her body being pulled in two directions. Would she emerge into Tommy's grasp? Or lose herself forever in the depths? And then silence. The moment hung, suspended in time, pulling her deeper as darkness swirled, both terrifying and beautifully catastrophic. Where would she land? And who would she become if she ever surfaced? Laura awoke to a stinging pain that pulsed through her limbs, a harsh reminder that she was very much alive. But alive where? The air was thick, like grasping fingers wrapping around her throat. The bathroom she had known was gone, replaced by an oppressive inky void that swallowed sound. She sat up, the floor beneath her a cold, gritty texture rather than the familiar tiles. Panic flared in her chest, sending waves of nausea crashing over her. "Tommy!" she shouted, her voice cracking with dread. The emptiness returned only a hollow echo as her words faded into the abyss. Heart racing, Laura struggled to her feet. The shadows were gone, or at least, they no longer whispered, but a sense of dread gnawed at her. The air felt wrong, heavy with unspoken malice. Each step reverberated like a death toll against the silence, dim memories pulling her back to the mirror and the plan she'd hatched. "Where are you, Tommy?" she whispered, scrambling to remember what had happened. Had she really stepped through the mirror? Did it truly hold the dangers of her imagination? Fear coiled tightly around her stomach as she turned around, scanning this strange realm. A flicker of light caught her eye, a faint shimmer that danced in the distance. Hope surged, but it was quickly drowned in doubt. Was it a guiding star, or a trap luring her deeper into darkness? Gritting her teeth, she pushed ahead. Shuffling along, she caught glimpses of scenes unfolding in the shadows, brief flashes of what looked like a diner, the familiar red booths, the smiling faces, and her son, laughing, at the end of a long counter. "Tommy!" Her breath quickened. The excitement transformed into desperation as she lunged toward the vision. The diner illusion shimmered, a mirage that flickered out of reach. Ow! A sharp pain erupted in her calf. She fell, scraping her palms against the rough floor. The echoes of cruel laughter rang in her ears as she tried to rise. "Is this a joke?" she screamed into the void. The mocking laughter diminished, replaced by chilling whispers creeping closer. "Mommy! You shouldn't have come!" Each word reverberated through her, filling her with dread. They weren't coming for her son, they were coming for her. With renewed fear, she scrambled to the direction of the flickering light, pushing through oppressive darkness that seemed to reach out, dragging her back. "Let me go!" she cried, twisting her body into a desperate sprint. The whispers turned into screams, the voices of the shadows now furious, howling as they pursued her. "You will regret this. You cannot escape." She ran, heart pounding, breath coming in short gasps, the light ahead morphing into a doorway. A figure appeared in the brightness, vague yet recognizable. Laura stopped, squinting as it became clearer. "Tommy?" she dared to hope. But the closer she got, the less familiar his face looked. Features became warped, a nightmarish reflection that sent chills through her. It was not her son. It was a shadowy imitation, moving unnaturally, showing no signs of the boy she loved. The light flickered ominously, revealing the room around her shifting, morphing into kitchens, dim hallways, and dark corners she didn't recognize. "No, no, no! This isn't right." The walls closed in, revealing sinister shapes that danced in the corners of her vision. She turned to run again, fear igniting her legs, but the echo of laughter morphed into a crescendo. The walls seemed to expand and contract, pulling her in and releasing her, tugging her in twisted directions like the nightmares she once believed were confined to her dreams. And then she saw it, a mirror, fractured like the last, vibrating with volatile energy. Was this a chance to escape? Would she find Tommy through this new reflection or plunge deeper into madness? Laura hesitated, despair creeping back in. Shadowy figures were closing in, their whispers intensifying as they drummed up her darkest fears. What awaited her on the other side? Would the mirror be a passage to salvation or just another layer of suffering? Tommy! She screamed one last time as she faced the mirror, heart racing at the thought of leaping once more into the unknown. But just then, the glass cracked, a jagged fissure hissing with venomous laughter. What have you done? It sounded like Tommy's voice, twisted and veiled. In that moment, inching forward, Laura couldn't help but wonder, had she truly come to save him, or had she unwittingly sealed their fates together in this darkness? Now, was she ready to face the malignant truths that awaited her within? The dim air vibrated with tension, a quiet simmering that threatened to boil over. Laura stood before the warped, mirror-like glass, heart pounding as the shadows coiled behind her. Their whispers curled and twisted, melding into a cacophony of torment. She could feel the weight of their hunger, their desire for despair. But enough was enough. Tommy, she whispered, echoing her fears with his name. The sound floated around her like a fragile thread, an anchor amidst the encroaching storm. She took a deep breath, feeling every pulse of her heart throbbing in her chest as she plucked the courage from her core. I won't lose you! The declaration flew from her lips, a battle cry clawing its way to freedom. The shadows seemed to hesitate for a beat, surprised by her surge of defiance. With that strength fueling her, she charged toward the broken mirror. The shattering crack was deafening, reverberating through her being like an explosive roar. She reached out, fingers grazing the surface, feeling the glass pulse with a sinister energy. Laura leaped forward, thrusting her body into the glassy abyss, and darkness swallowed her whole. The transition was disorienting, a violent rush as the void absorbed her. She gasped, plunging headfirst into a thick veil of night. And then silence. She hit the ground, not tiles but soft grass. Distant laughter danced on the wind, familiar yet hollow, weaving through her thoughts like a taunting melody. She blinked, adjusting to the dim glow of the moonlight filtering down. And there it was, the Wendy's playground, set beneath the stars like some cruel puppet show. But something was different. Tommy? She called. The stillness stretched, only her voice answering back. Suddenly, the shadows emerged around her, morphing into shapes both familiar and frightening. Tommy, they echoed, faces resembling her son but twisted in torment. Their eyes glowed unnaturally, draped in anguish. A sense of loss washed over her as she realized they were victims too, trapped and longing for the same rescue. No more, she asserted, gripping her fists tight. I will find my son. Anger ignited like fire in her belly, surging to life the bravery she'd buried under fear. Laura, the shadows crooned, seductive and coaxing. The play is just beginning, I don't care. She bellowed, fists raised in defiance. I am not a puppet in your game. Each word was a hammer, shattering their grip on her. With resoluteness coursing through her, she charged toward the laughter echoing in the distance. Tommy! Where are you? The air stirred, palpable and thick with dread as the laughter crescendoed to a deafening roar. But at the heart of it there was a flicker of hope. She followed it, pushing through the oppressive wall of shadows. Running forward, Laura burst through the facade they'd built, eyes landing on a small figure standing in the middle of the playground. Mommy! He called, eyes shining with tears. Time stilled as the world faded into nothing but the sound of her heart racing. Without hesitation, Laura lunged forward, arms outstretched. Tommy! She wrapped him in an embrace, feeling every ounce of fear and despair dissolve into warmth. His tiny frame felt so real, grounding her. Don't leave me, Mommy! They want to take me. His voice trembled against her ear, and the shadows hissed in the background, furious at her defiance. I won't let them, she swore, squeezing him tighter. We'll find a way. The shadows writhed angrily, closing in around them. Join us. They hissed, trying to weave through their reunion, clawing and grasping like forsaken spirits. But Laura stood firm, heart resolute. Suddenly, a surge of light erupted from her tightly held bond with Tommy. It was pure and radiant, a beacon that ignited the dark atmosphere. The shadows shrank back, disoriented and screaming in agony. Together. Hold on tight, she urged, gripping his small hand. They surged toward the brightness, the familiar glow of hope pulsating like energy pouring from the heavens. The shadows shrieked, swirling in chaos, desperately clawing for a hold. But they were unstoppable. Light washed over them, strong and bright, enveloping the sinister playground in brilliant clarity. The shadows dissolved, finally silenced under the sheer force of their love. In the next heartbeat, Laura and Tommy emerged from the depths, finding themselves back in the real world. The restaurant stood quiet, the flickering fluorescent lights steady above them, ordinary and safe. They were home. "Mommy?" Tommy looked up at her, eyes still wide with wonder. "Did we win?" "Yeah, buddy, we did." Tears streamed down her face, filled now with relief rather than sorrow. She cradled her son close and swayed with him, the echoes of the past finally fading. "Never again," she whispered fiercely against his hair, full of gratitude for each moment they shared. The door of Wendy's swung open, and for the first time, their laughter floated freely into the night, untainted by shadows. As they stepped out, Laura felt the weight lift from her shoulders. They had returned, and in this moment they were free. Now, friends, it's time to take action. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that'll keep you up at night. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm flowers, and help us bloom. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild conclusion. What do you think about Laura's journey? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this thrilling ending. True fans know the importance of supporting the channel, so let us show the world what we've built together.